Really quick, if you haven't seen my most recent episode on Bane, Lord of Darkness, make sure you check that one out at some point to find out why I said, "Oh no," when I saw this commander. But first, stick around for this episode to find out why my thoughts are, exactly that. You see that emoji? That was my first thought when I saw this card. So what in the world could this card do to elicit that reaction? Well, let's jump into it. So, the card that elicited that response is Blood Money. Blood Money is a sorcery for 5 black, and it says, destroy all creatures. For each non-token creature destroyed this way, create a tapped treasure token. Okay, so there are certain limitations that are placed on this card, like it specifying non-token, which is very important, and also specifying that the treasures come into play tapped, which is even more important because, you wouldn't want someone just be able to just wipe the board and then be like, oh, okay, there was like 14 creatures in play. Awesome. I just, netted mana. It's basically a ritual, but still. Unless it is a very unique effect that is making treasures these days, it just seems like they're slapping treasure onto absolutely any card that they can. And yeah, this, is probably a card you're going to run into in casual formats a decent amount. I mean, 7 mana, yes, is a good amount of mana, and I'll actually break down other, board wipes and how much they cost. But yeah, just generic card that now just makes a ton of treasures and does, one thing is just starting to kind of get old. And treasures are really a pretty powerful thing, a very powerful thing. And I think Wizards may have underestimated just how powerful they are. There are definitely games that are kind of taken over by just the vast amount of value you can get from treasure tokens, and just adding even more kind of, treasure token creators that, just make you a bunch of treasures at once might not be all that good of a thing. Again, yes, this does cost 7 mana, so it does have that going for it, where it has a decently high converted mana cost, but again, there are plenty of decks out there that can get to 7 mana pretty quickly, and actually, it's not really, a pretty quickly kind of thing to cast anyway, sometimes because you might just want to wait for the board to develop to a point where you're like, hey, okay, yeah, now there's, 14 creatures on the board, awesome, I just ramped by 14, or temporarily ramped, but still. Going from 7 mana on one turn, and then next turn untapping, playing a land with your 8 mana, and then, having access to, 22 mana at that point? Yeah, this can just be pretty ludicrous in the right situation. Again, I am glad that they put those limiting factors on this, which they might not have at one point, but yeah, they put non-token, which is important for this. And then also, those treasures do come into play tapped, which I think is definitely something that they're going to start doing more and more often because, yeah, that is a limiting factor on treasures that probably needs to be done on certain things, and I'll bring up some examples actually right now. Okay, so first up, I believe Brass's Bounty was kind of like the big first, treasure token maker out there, and I actually liked this card. I mean, when it first came out, treasures weren't ubiquitous in Commander. They weren't everywhere. So it's kind of a novel effect. Yeah, I'll just, cast this, make a lot of treasures based on the number of lands I have, not based on, some other factor that benefits from a multiplayer format that's like, hey, based on the number of creatures in play, essentially. Also, the fact that obviously this one is in red and not in green is important because, yeah, I mean, obviously green is the best color when it comes to actually getting lands out. Now, obviously, if you've got, Gruul in your color identity, you can use this card. But still, it is just doing one thing. It is literally just a, hey, let's make a lot of treasures. You're not getting any other benefit from this. Now, obviously, since then, we've gotten a lot of other ways to make a ton of treasures. I mean, throughout the game, obviously, Smothering Tithe can make you an incredible amount of treasures and also just be a very annoying card to play against because are you paying the 2? Are you paying the 2? Are you paying the 2? No, we're not paying the 2 the vast majority of the time. 2 is a ridiculous amount of mana for one card drawn. And then, of course, since then we got Dockside Extortionist, which, goodness gracious, I mean, I think, again, I believe the Rules Committee mentioned that this is on the ban radar, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, a 2-mana creature that has, when it enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens or X the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. So again, this is on an ETB that, of course, heavily benefits you for playing in a multiplayer format where your opponents are going to have, artifacts and enchantments, and it counts all of them, and of course, those treasures come into play untapped, so yeah, there's some very, very broken things that you can do this 2-mana card. And of course, more recently, I mean, we got a ton of ways to make treasures in Streets of New Capenna, and perhaps the most brutal of these ways is with Bootlegger's Stash. It's an artifact that has lands you control have tap, create a treasure token. So this is just a repeatable effect where you can just keep making treasure after treasure after treasure. And yeah, this is a pretty good effect. Let's just say that. So yeah, I think treasures and treasure making effects are just becoming more and more ubiquitous over these past couple of years, and especially the past couple of months. I mean, the past two sets that we've had, obviously Streets of New Capenna, and then this one also involved treasures. Now, I'm not saying, the next set or even the set after that are going to involve treasures. They might, but yeah, more and more often lately, we've been seeing more and more treasures, and they're definitely becoming a part of Commander. Now, when I do see, a unique way that utilizes treasures, sorry, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen my episode on Descent into Avernus, make sure you check that one out. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. And I don't mind those types of effects just because they utilize treasures if they're, doing so in an interesting way. But again, even though Blood Money is 7 mana, obviously, it's not going to see, competitive play, but I think in, casual formats like Commander with, a lot of casual tables out there, you're probably going to see Blood Money a decent amount. And yeah, it's going to be a big swingy play. And, with a full board, the player's just going to be able to run away with the game, pretty quickly, in most situations. Being able to get a ton of temporary ramp, all at once, just in one go with one card has proven itself to be, very powerful in many situations. I mean, Dockside Extortionist, as an example. Obviously, this card is not Dockside Extortionist, nowhere near it, but still. But let's just quickly go through the most popular Wrath spells in black out there, just to see, how this one lines up, especially mana-wise. So first up, of course, we've got Toxic Deluge, a sorcery for 2 in a black, and it says, additional cost cast a spell, pay X life. All creatures get -X until end of turn. Obviously, in a format like Commander, you start off with a good chunk of life at 40, so yeah, a 3-mana Wrath that is flexible, and that, you can essentially get rid of everything you don't want on the board. Yeah, there's a reason this is number 1. It sees a ton of play, even though it's pretty expensive. Speaking of expensive and a ton of play, yeah, Black's Wrath of God Damnation is the exact same thing as Wrath of God, but in black, and much more expensive. It's around $30 or so, but even with that, this is the second most popular Wrath spell in black, because, yeah, 4 mana. Now, from there, though, at the third most popular Wrath in black, we've got Crux of Fate, and this one's a bit unique because, yeah, there's a lot of dragon decks out there. And yeah, it's a very popular tribe, and this is a fantastic Wrath in Dragon decks because it's a one-sided board wipe essentially most of the time. Choose one, destroy all non-dragon creatures, or destroy all dragon creatures, so yeah, you're going to pick, obviously, that non-dragon creature option. But again, this one does cost 5 mana, not quite to 7, but we are getting there. Because after that, then we just jump all the way up to 8 mana at the 4 spot with Decree of Pain. Decree of Pain is a sorcery for 6 black, and it says destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated. Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way, and you can cycle it away for 3 black, and when you do, all creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Now, I think this is kind of exactly where I see Blood Money being kind of in that Decree of Pain area. It costs nearly as much as this one, gives you a massive benefit, again, slightly more limited because, you don't get to utilize those treasures right away, and it's not counting token creatures, but still. It's definitely in the same vein as this card, and it can definitely have an even bigger impact than this card in certain situations. Next up, though, we jump down in mana cost a little bit to Deadly Tempest at 4 black. It's a sorcery that says draw creatures, each player loses life equal to the number of creatures they control that were destroyed this way. Now, yes, this does cost 1 less than Blood Money, but the benefit, well, when it comes to either making players lose life or, gaining a ton of value with treasures, I'm going to take the treasures the vast majority of the time, even if they come into play tapped, and again, even if they don't count token creatures. So, yeah, I do think Blood Money will see a good amount more play than Deadly Tempest. So yeah, I think overall, yeah, Blood Money is definitely not for every deck. Yeah, 7 mana is a good amount of mana to have to put into something, but the payoff can be absolutely massive. And, as some of these board wipes have proven, people are willing to pay a decent amount for some board wipes, when they have big payoffs, like, again, Decree of Pain. That being said, really quick, of course, you can make even more out of these treasures by utilizing cards like, Parallel Lives, Zoning Procession, Doubling Season, which are incredibly expensive, and they basically just double up your treasure token production, which, yeah, I think anytime we have, a giant treasure-making card, I bring these up out of habit because, well, I know there's probably going to be a comment if I don't, saying, you didn't mention Doubling Season, and it does great with treasures. Yes, it does. You are correct. One other thing that I will mention, though, well, actually, I guess two, but Amulet of Vigor, of course, works well with treasures that come into play tapped because it says, no, you don't. It's an artifact for 1 that says whenever a permanent enters the battlefield, tapped under your control, untap it, and like those previous 3 cards that I talked about, and actually this next one I'm going to as well, It's incredibly expensive. I think it's around $30 or so. And yeah, then there's Goldspan Dragon, which I believe is $25 or so at this point, and probably just going to keep going up in price with all these treasure things. It's a 4/4 flying in haste that says when it attacks or becomes the target of a spell, create a treasure token. Treasure you control have tap, sacrifices artifact, add 2 mana of any one color. Now, obviously, in combination with blood money, make sure you get the dragon out after you cast that spell, because you would just destroy the dragon, and that would not really help you. Now, when it comes to commanders that might want to consider this new card, indestructible commanders are definitely some that are on the top of my mind, like, Athreos Shroud Veiled. It's a 4/7 god that's indestructible. As long as your devotion to white and black is less than 7, it's not a creature, and at the beginning of your end step, put a coin counter on another target creature. And whenever a creature with a coin counter on it dies or is put in exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. So with this, yeah, I mean, you're already going to be trying to ramp a lot with this deck to try to get your commander out pretty early. And then, yes, just wait for the board to be built up, get coin counters on your opponent's creatures, wipe them with your blood money spell, and make a ton of tokens, while also, stealing their creatures as well. Have fun! Next up, how about Yahenni Undying Partisan, a commander that also benefits from your opponent's creatures dying. It says whenever a creature your opponent controls dies, put a +1 counter on Yahenni Undying Partisan, and although it doesn't have indestructible naturally, by sacrificing another creature, you can give it indestructible until end of turn, so it can survive the board wipe as well. So obviously, you can have a big swingy play where you knock out all of your opponent's creatures. The Yahenni can get huge. You can swing through for a ton of damage, and then also set yourself up for next turn with all those treasures that you're going to be making. But yeah, one final commander I just want to highlight, and actually I do want to warn you about a commander like this, because when I first started playing Commander, I did build a Selenia Dark Angel deck, and it was a board wipe deck. It was 15 board wipes or so, and yeah, many playgroups don't like playing against that, so definitely a lesson I have learned. But yeah, I mean, if your playgroup's okay with board wipe deck, obviously this is another high impact board wipe to throw in a deck that is just looking to wipe the board. Overall, again, though, and I'm sorry, I probably should have said this earlier, even though my reaction is not, a good one to this card, that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it as well. I know there's a lot of players out there that really like treasures, and yeah, I like treasures in certain scenarios too, when they're doing unique things and stuff like that. I'm just not a big fan of just, adding make a ton of treasures to a lot of cards and effects out there. I feel like treasures are becoming a bit too ubiquitous in Commander, and they can definitely take over games pretty easily. That being said, I would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this card? Do you like it? Do you not like it? And why? So yeah, let me know in the comments below. And of course, make sure you're staying tuned to this channel for even more quick takes and even more exciting spoilers coming up. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.